Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas, episode 60. On the road again, that world-famous Willie Nelson song, though I'm not sure he wrote it. My name is Eddie Rivkin. I'm joined as always by Lindsey Brown of Lotus Broadcasting and Chris Chapman of Fox Sports Las Vegas. This episode, like all others, is brought to you by the Las Vegas Advisor, www.lasvegasadvisor.com, your home for everything Las Vegas. Hey, including F1 because it's F1 week here in Las Vegas. But if you want sports tips, gambling tips, food tips, show tips, go to the Las Vegas Advisor, www.lasvegasadvisor.com. And also by my good friend, Dr. John Pierce at Ageless Forever, www.agelessforever.net, 702-838-1994. Give the office a call. Set up your first appointment, and your introductory appointment is on the house, courtesy of Hockey Nights in Vegas. There's a little new bumper for our advertisement. So it's time to talk hockey. The Golden Knights righted the ship after their incredibly long, dramatic, strenuous losing streak of 2 games because the San Jose Sharks came to town. And if you've got an ailment, by golly, the San Jose Sharks are good for what ails you. 5-0. Pietrangelo scored in the first minute of the game, and the game was essentially over. So there really isn't much to talk about there, I don't think. But the Golden Knights headed out on the first of their 2 5-game road trips. This trip was highlighted the day before by a trip to the White House. And the boys got to meet the commander-in-chief. They gave him a jersey, gave him a gold stick. It was a beautiful ceremony. It was kind of fun. Mark Stone looked really nervous, like super nervous, even more nervous than sometimes he looks when he talks to us. But he got through it, and I think finally the celebrations are over and we can get after it. Last night, the Golden Knights got shut out 3-0 by the Washington Capitals. It was really a 1-0 game, 2 empty net goals in 24 seconds or something late in the third period. But it seemed to me that the Golden Knights significantly outplayed the Washington Capitals. They had multiple breakaways, multiple odd man rushes, and they just got beat by a hot goalie, some guy named Chucky or Charlie Lindgren or something like that. So since we're gonna talk about the goalie that shut out the Golden Knights, we'll just do Lindsey's notes in the net. And who the hell's Charlie Lindgren there, Lindsey Brown?
Well, would you like to know where he's from? He's from Lakeville, Minnesota. He's from Lakeville, Minnesota. If I'm not mistaken, Jake Ottinger is also from Lakeville, Minnesota. You want to know where he trains? He trains at Stauber's Gold Crease. That's in Edina, Minnesota. I also am a product of Stauber's Gold Crease, actually one of the original products. I met Rob before the place was even opened many, 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 many moons ago. You could find my name on some plate in there. And Charlie played really well. And I love to see a Minnesota goalie play well. There's actually a great YouTube. I'm going to plug Stauber's Gold Crease's content because I went and watched it. And a lot of my goalie notes have to talk about the use of glove hands, not necessarily in Charlie Lindgren's case, but more about Logan Thompson and how I kind of think there's different ways to target goaltenders that happen to be length blessed, like Logan Thompson is, right? He's one of the lankiest guys. He's very athletic. And so what I ask when you have these longer goalies, and he's not the only one in this league, is where's the sniper shot now at this point? Because if you go for people who kind of just watch the game or just introduced, they're like bar down for sure, right? Bar down, it looks pretty. It's simple. It's a great angle. You have a lot of area to shoot at, but that's not necessarily true anymore with the taller goalies, right? They're taller. They take up more at net. Their hands are closer to the height that's necessary to make those stops. But if you ask, Eddie or myself or people that know hockey a little bit more, it's usually low blocker side, Eddie, right? It's like a foot off the ice and you shoot there. Like that's where the real goal scorers shoot. The ones that aren't looking for the accolades, aren't looking to be showy. But I would contend now the hip area is a place where you can target for a money shot, especially with long goaltenders like Logan Thompson, because of how long their arms are and how much it takes for them to stay in position and keep the areas around your elbows, your midsection, your armpit closed, especially when they're in movement. And so there's so many different ways to look at how to approach a shot. And that's where the goalie video is kind of looking at Charlie Lindgren saves, because sometimes you just are asking questions about how far out are you going and sacrificing in that expedition? Are your elbows too widely flared so you're opening up holes around your hips? Are you moving with the correct force through your body, and is it being led with your hands or is it ending with your hands? Because all these little choices, these little habits that you have as a goaltender add up to milliseconds that matter to whether or not you make a save or not, whether you get a piece or a clean glove save. And the point of the video was talking about how with Charlie Lindgren, he opts for not the cleanest glove save style. Like, the pursuit of perfection sometimes opens you up to being vulnerable. And I think being long as a goaltender as well, if you're a guy that puts your glove out really far and interjects into space, you have to recenter that and bring that back in, right? And so less is more sometimes. Maybe settling for a body shot is a more efficient use of your time and angle and your advantage as a goaltender and how you play angles. And so I was just really fascinated by the matchup. I thought the Golden Knights had a lot of really great chances, especially in the third period in tight. And the way that Charlie played his hands, where they're low but not enough to put him in a compromising position, it allowed him to stay tall and get pieces of other saves that needed to be made in the flurry shots, right? And I think that the Capitals did a decent job of boxing out the Golden Knights as well. So Golden Knights were getting shots, but they weren't like their full shots. They were like, whacking at it and whatnot. So goalie stuff, guys. Thank you for the space.
Do you remember when we were kids and when there wasn't a goalie, they used to put it, there was the four corner target.
The shooter tutor.
Right. The same thing that they still do it in the All-Star game now.
Yep.
Right. You have to hit the four corners. I would say right now that the four spots that are the highest percentage to score are just above the goalie's pad and below his hands on both sides, and right next to his ears. I mean, there's a whole lot more head hunting. I mean, two here and then two down. That's the target now, because you see more goalies getting their bucket knocked off now than you ever did in the NHL.
Well, and that's challenging the stylistic choices of when do you butterfly, how far out do you butterfly versus do you stay on your feet? Because when you get blown by the ears, like, that usually means you're opting for that butterfly choice. And if you're a low glove person, if you're having people hit those shots up high, then it's going to take you longer to react that way. That's what I was saying with the taller goaltenders. They're up higher, so they can at least get those shoulder shots without having to actually get their glove or their blocker up to meet it. But that's a challenge that I certainly notice as well, especially around like post play and how they're trying to take advantage of people not sealing it effectively. Not necessarily always looking to score, which sometimes it happens, but also creating weird rebounds where you're not in the best position to get the net coverage where you can get a scrum and maybe get something going in tight.
Well, now that we've completely nerded out on goaltending, it's time to talk to Chapman about something. So let's start with Paul Cotter. Took a match penalty about 5 minutes into the second period. The hit started out fairly clean because I felt like he led with his shoulder, but then at the end he sort of raised his elbow up and he certainly clipped Kuznetsov, who milked it a little probably, but he got the match penalty. As of 12:36 on the 15th of November, we don't have any news from the Department of Player Safety. Chap, what'd you think of the hit?
I thought it was dirty. Look, I don't necessarily think that Paul Cotter is a dirty player. I just think it was a situation where, look, you're out on the ice. Maybe sometimes your emotions are running high, and I don't think it was one of those things where Cotter went in with the intent, but it happened. And the hit in general, maybe Kuznetsov stayed down and sold it a little bit. Who cares? You know what? You get hit in the head. I think you're entitled to do that. The interesting thing is, as you said, here we are, Pacific time, 12:37 now in the afternoon on the West Coast, and no word on player safety. So leads me to believe that maybe they think first time offender or first time Paul Cotter's had a disciplinary issue.
$5,000.
Yeah, he'll probably get fined. And look, they're probably, because the match penalty came in the second period, very early in the second period. DPS is probably looking at it like, well, that's his suspension. If anything, maybe they tack a game. Maybe he's suspended for a game, but I don't foresee anything more than that. The fact, generally, when these things happen, we know early in the morning that a guy's meeting with DPS.
Yeah.
The fact that we're now past lunchtime almost and no word has gotten out, it makes me think the DPS is not going to really do anything about it. And, whether that's right or wrong, that's not for me to give an opinion on. But if he got another game tacked on to the match penalty, I don't think I would have a problem with it.
Lindsey?
Yeah, I'm just rewatching it right now myself and looking at it. And it's not the most malicious check to the head. Sometimes you just finish up a little bit higher than you intend, or maybe you aren't as close to them body-wise as you thought, and so you chicken wing a little bit more. But regardless, it's not about intent. It's about the follow-through, and there is a little bit. At least it's not like forward motion like this, and it's more of a shove up. But if you just catch somebody at the right point of the jaw, I mean, we've all probably been in a situation. I'm a proud owner of 4 concussions myself, and so but I've never been in a fight. They all happen in hockey, and so I think so too. They'll take into consideration that half game that he didn't play, and it's not like he's a repeat offender, but he's got to learn how to better be mature in those moments or better control his body. And so not something you want to be putting into the lineup, especially when you've started as well as he has. And while the Golden Knights are anticipating getting bodies back, it's not like the lineup's been super consistent either.
Speaking of getting bodies back, the 3 regular roster players, Nick Hague, Nick Waugh, and Chandler Stevenson, are all out on the road trip. It's 5 games in 11 days, starting again last night that we've been talking about the Capitals game. The 3 of them are with the team and are all expected to play during this road trip. That leaves roster questions. Who do you think is going to be the odd man out when those 3 people? I mean, in defense, it's fairly easy. You know that Ben Hutton is going to go back to being D7. But up front, you have your second line and fourth line centers coming back, and you have Paul Cotter, you have Pavel Dorofeyev, you have Brett Howden, who may or may not be in a little bit of trouble now that the ruling has come down with regards to the Canadian Junior incident from many, many years ago. And we'll touch on that later. But it's back to musical chairs with the Golden Knights. Paul Cotter was moved from the second line wing with Stone and Chandler Stevenson down to the fourth line. Is that an ominous sign for who might be the odd man out when, I'm sorry, not the fourth line, the third line with Carlson? So who do we think is going to be visiting with us in the press box when the Vegas Golden Knights get back to their full lineup? Chap, you better go first. Otherwise, you're not going to get any airtime today.
Well, I feel like it's a pretty simple. I mean, we're going to go on the assumption that there is no suspension for Paul Cotter. I think it's Pavel Dorofeyev. I think he's going to be the odd man out. Look, I mean, whether or not there's something looming for Brett Howden, I don't know. We'll see. But for Pavel Dorofeyev, I feel like he's kind of been quiet. Like, I know he's had some points, but it just seems like the last maybe 4 games or so, he's been kind of quiet. And for a guy who is a goal scorer and a guy who, as Bruce Cassidy said, scores some greasy goals. I mean, I don't really think of him as being that type of player, but when he described him as being a greasy player, what he was saying is he's slick, like he's slippery, and not so much what we think of in terms of a greasy player. But we haven't really seen that. Like Paul Cotter, I feel like produces when he's in there. I think both of them production-wise are actually pretty even, but I just feel like Cotter is a lot more noticeable when he's out there on the ice. I mean, Jonas Rondbjerg was never going to be a long-term solution But it's an interesting question. The good thing is the Golden Knights have depth. They have depth in a lot of positions. You mentioned the defensive core, and obviously once Nick Hay comes back, it'll be Ben Hutton who goes back to the press box. I think that's pretty cut and dry. But yeah, I mean, for me, as far as at the forward position, it's Pavel Dorofeyev who's going to be the odd man out.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at the stats over the last 5 games in Hockey Reference for both of them, and like Dorofeyev basically just has a few blocks, a few shots on goal, 1 or 2 per night, doesn't offer anything in the hitting department. Whereas Paul Cotter, he's not going to take as many shots, but he's going to be more physically involved. And so it depends on what this team needs right now. It depends on who you're trying to insulate. We know how well William Karlsson has been playing. And so you consider like, well, do we want to disrupt that? How self-sufficient is he playing? Or is it more of a product of a vibe that he's having with certain players? And if so, do we want to preserve that and go with that route? And so, but ultimately, just like anything, it's about players that play themselves into not being the ones in consideration, right? And when you're being quiet enough, like you were saying, Chris, in the scoring department and not being as slick, I noticed that the Golden Knights haven't been able to get to the net front as easily in terms of being able to get good shots off, like I was talking about earlier. Like if you get waxed, that's fine, but the chances of you actually finishing on those are pretty damn low, because that means you're not winning the body leverage battle in front. That probably means you're not going to get another secondary scoring chance. And so they need to do a better job of that. And that's kind of Dorofeyev's game, right? Like when we see Cotter score, he's a little bit further out. He's hitting open shots. He's scoring on the rush. And so are they going speed? Are they going physicality? There's a lot of questions to consider, but both of those guys are definitely in the considerations.
Well, and just one more thing. I don't know if this goes into consideration or not, but it certainly may. Who's the guy I trust more in a shootout? Paul Cotter or Pavel Dorofeyev?
Well, I mean, the team thinks that Cotter is the best on the team, but he wasn't in the first 2 shootouts. My concern with Dorofeyev is he's playing with the leading scorer on the Golden Knights, William Karlsson, and he's not even hanging apples.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, at the end of the day, listen, there's production that you see on the stat sheet, and then there's game production. Paul Cotter is undeniably the grinder guy who will go get the puck, who will hit anything that moves, who personally, I'm surprised a little bit at his passing ability. He's set up a lot of really high quality,
good vision,
great. Yeah. And listen, Chapman has Ivan Barbashev and Braden McDatt as his backup, his side guy. And I make no bones about being an unabashed Paul Cotter fan, but I am surprised by his vision on the ice. He really has shown a lot in the passing and setup. He was a lot more of a Cy Young guy, right? 9 goals, 1 assist, something like that. But I just think that, I read somewhere that Dorofeyev has proven himself to be an everyday NHL player, and I just disagree with that. Where Paul Cotter, he played 55 games last year. He's adjusted his role. For the first week or 10 days, he was leading the league in hits. He's doing, I think, exactly what Bruce Cassidy wants as one member of every line. Hard on the puck, hard on the forecheck, hard on the reloads. So I don't think there's really much question who's going to be the odd person out when they get healthy, and I think it's Pavel Dorofeyev.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah, and I think Paul Cotter, hold on, before we move on from Cotter, I think Paul Cotter's vision at least has to be a good chunk of it shaped by the fact that he's a smaller guy. Like I think when you're smaller, you have to have your head on more of a swivel to make sure that you're not going to get lit up. And so you have to think a little bit faster. You have to make those passes a little bit quicker and be able to move out of the way. And so I think you're seeing that being able to be utilized in a different way at this level by being able to hit those passes. Like it's one thing to see the pass, it's another thing to hit the pass. So good on him for having the ability to make the pass, but I'm just more speaking about where the goggles practice comes from. I think it's because you're trying to avoid getting blown up.
But Cotter is 6'2", 210.
Yeah, but he doesn't look like he's 6'2" out there. He's so small. Like, he looks like he's a smaller guy out there.
Does he look smaller than Dorofeev?
Yeah, to me, yeah. I think Dorofeev's
really?
Broader.
Like bulldog chest broader?
I'm shocked to hear that Cotter's listed at 6'2". I'd like to double check that, and maybe that's just me and my weird whatever, but that's shocking to me. Maybe not the 210 part because he's solid. That would make sense. But like Marshy, there's a reason why Marshy's playing in this league. It's because he doesn't get pushed over, even though he's literally like a human thumb. And so like that's just, he's able to get his shot off quick. It rises quick. He knows how to shoot the puck, and he doesn't get pushed around because low center of gravity. 6'2" Paul Cotter.
No, check that. Paul Cotter is 6 foot, as is Pavel Dorofeev.
Yeah, Dorofeev is, I think, more of a refrigerator box, but that's where it's like Cotter plays more like a banshee, though.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. That's just how I read them.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Okay.
6 foot is much different than 6'2", so that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, because all men know 2 inches is significant.
It is.
Not even a chuckle from Lindsey.
I can't hit anything to that.
So
I'm more angry because I have a joke that I've pulled that's exactly like that, and you just said it before, and so it's more of me being salty. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I would say we're all just 2 inches too short in our lives, aren't we?
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
In one way or another.
So we're moving along pretty fast here. So there's a couple of haha headlines, and I think we should all take a moment to reach around, pat ourselves on the back, because our unanimous prediction from episode 59 came true awfully fast. Poor Jay Woodcroft, whatever his name is.
You don't even care.
Was
you
the
didn't
first
even like him.
No, of course not. I didn't like him one bit. First coach the NHL fired the season. Edmonton Oilers 2-9-1. They lost to San Jose. We laughed about it. Kind of ruined the bet of what would happen first: a Golden Knights loss or a San Jose Sharks win. But what was strange about that is they fired him after they blew out the Kraken. Anything weird about that to you?
Yeah, it makes me
as the sort of first carry on, and we'll get to the second one later. So stay away from that second one we talked about. Are you surprised that Kenny Holland didn't get shipped as well? Coach and general manager, like the Raiders.
So I'll start with Woodcroft. The weird thing was, as you mentioned, lose to the Sharks, go to Seattle. I think that was just a case of them already making the decision post San Jose and having a game. It was on a Saturday, so there was a night in between, but they were on the road at the time. I just think that they probably had to tie up some loose ends, maybe contractually with the new fella, before they could officially pull the plug on Jay Woodcroft. I will say this: the Golden Knights broke that guy. Like they broke him. Like he came into the presser at T-Mobile Arena after, I think it was game 2.
Yep.
And he was puffing out his chest and nobody punches my guys in the mouth. We'll fight you back. They broke him. They broke the guy because the guy won 3 hockey games after that. So, I mean, look, it's funny to us here in Vegas. It's obviously not funny that the guy lost his job. I mean, I don't root for anyone to lose their job, but that guy, like, honestly, it was a comedy of errors in the way it happened. You know, you lose to San Jose in a game that they probably should have put like 7 or 8 on the board, and San Jose probably only should have scored 1, but they still lost that game. And the arrogance I thought from Woodcroft, the fact that I felt like he truly believed that he was the best coach in the NHL, despite the fact that he hadn't proven anything as a coach. You know, it's it was a bad combination. And I think maybe the players lost a little respect for him. And as far as your second point, I think Ken Holland is out at the end of the year anyway. So I don't think it was a surprise to me that he wasn't packed up and shipped out as well. I don't know how much of a role he had in bringing in, because Connor McDavid's agent, or former agent, I should say, is going to take over as the general manager, or not the general, as the general manager in Edmonton.
He's the president.
Yeah.
He's the president of the club.
Yeah. So he's the one pulling the strings, not Ken Holland. And I think it's a situation where they're probably going to look, Ken Holland is a guy who I would say is probably a legend in the game. And I think they have some respect for him, and they wanted to allow him to go out with some dignity, and they didn't want to fire the guy. That's my opinion on it. Look, I don't know a lot of people in Edmonton. I haven't spoken to anyone that I do know in Edmonton about it, but that would be my guess.
Lindsey?
Yeah, I think that entire organization is an absolute clown show right now. When they had their press conference to explain the move, you had one of their front office people. I don't even know. I'm trying to figure out the names of who was saying it, because you had conflicting stories saying we talked to the players about this. And then another guy said, no, we didn't consult anybody. And then Connor McDavid's in the locker room saying that Jay Woodcroft never lost the room, right? But then it's so bizarre that you wouldn't tell Connor McDavid that you're going to make a coaching change, especially if agent guy is higher up in the office as well. And so it's just another symptom of the overall disease that club has, which is the way that they build rosters and the way that they have chosen to take their franchise in a direction. And a lot of it has to do with Connor. And the thing is I don't blame them because he's so talented, but when the guy makes 12.5 per year, and then you have best buddy Leon, who's also a very expensive piece. I understand that some people are willing to let certain things go when you bring in people like Evander Kane, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It scores power play goals in the regular season. It wins Hart trophies. It does all these things, but this is an organization that it's not like they haven't won cups before. It's not like they haven't had a greatest of all time. And I honestly think this mismanagement, and it has to be mismanagement, whether or not Connor's involved, maybe he's not. I'm looking at the organization if I'm him, and this is laying the groundwork for me to get the hell out of there. For me to get the hell out of there and to go play for a more competent organization. Nobody's holy. Wayne wasn't, right? And I would think that at some point he has to take a look at what the contractual decisions that this organization has made and whether or not it is possible to field a competitive, depth-filled hockey team to take out the competition in today's NHL in the moments that matter most, right? Do they play the right way? That's a whole other question as well, right? I think they have to play a certain way because they have so much money dedicated, and this is what their roster is. And so they've made their bed. Somebody peed in it, and now we don't know what's going to happen going forward. You are so popular.
I'm just going to end this part of the conversation before we go to the next ha-ha headline. 9 coaches in 15 years.
Yeah, what?
That's it. I think
you had Peter Chiarelli in there. That's the mark of ineptitude. Damn it.
Todd McClellan at one point.
God.
The second ha-ha headline is, it goes sort of to the clown show comment that Lindsey just made. Connor McDavid was surprised that Jay Woodcroft got fired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not buying that.
And wait, can anybody on this panel name the guy? Who's the replacement?
I don't remember that. I saw it.
Knobloch.
That's what I was thinking. It's Chuck Knobloch, but it's another Knobloch.
Chris Knobloch, is that his name?
Isn't it K?
I think
K,
so.
Chris with a K.
But Chris with a K, who nobody's ever heard of. Oh.
Well, no.
Wait. He was the coach of the Erie Otters. He coached juniors at Erie.
When?
When Connor McDavid was there.
What?
Holy shnikes, as somebody on ESPN used to say. The replacement coach for the Edmonton Oilers is Connor McDavid's junior coach. And Connor McDavid had no idea that Jay Woodcroft was going to get fired.
Definitely wasn't hired because he was Connor's coach either. Like that's
so Connor McDavid is the general manager now. His agent is the president. He's the general manager, and his junior coach is the coach. Do I have that right?
Yes. Yep.
This is the theater of the absurd, in my opinion. Listen, I got nothing against Chris Knobloch. I never heard his name until they announced that he's going to be the coach.
Yeah,
but when you Google it, it's like one of the first things he said, Coach Connor McDavid at Erie. So, Clown Show, I think, is being nice. So I'm going to make a prediction. You ready for this? And this goes to the core of why every single non-Golden Knights fan fucking hates the Golden Knights. This is the every shiny thing prediction. Leon Draisaitl will be a Golden Knight after the 24-25 season. Because Connor is going to need to make 14 or 15 now that Austin Matthews has sort of cracked that ceiling. Leon Draisaitl has one more year, I think at 8.5, maybe.
Yep.
If you look at the expiring contracts on the Golden Knights, Martinez at 5+. What do they do with Jonathan Marchessault? The cap going up $4+ million. They're saying at least $4 million in the next 2 or 3 seasons because revenues are at an all-time high. Attendance is up. The players have paid off their escrow, all of those other things. I'm going to say this pretty shiny thing that's going to happen is that Leon Draisaitl is going to be a free agent acquisition by the Golden Knights. There you go.
So at the end of the 24-25 season.
Yes.
Okay. So that's a year and a half away.
Yes.
I listen, I will never sit here and say that the Golden Knights will not go out and get a specific player because we have seen the Golden Knights go out and get every specific player that they want. If they want Leon Draisaitl will be a Golden Knight. There is zero doubt in my mind about that. I think the issue that they run into is I think we're going to get to a point where listen, this is not going to end well in Edmonton. I don't know if Chris Knobloch can coach in the NHL. It's a huge jump. Where was he? The AHL before, I think?
What difference is he going to make? Hey, Chris, this isn't brain surgery. Like, this is just you hop on the bench. You make sure you bring everybody's birth certificates. You get orange slices in between periods.
Your superstar player happy. That's his job. You keep your superstar happy. And I don't know how happy he's going to keep Connor McDavid if they're not winning. The reality is that team has not been good in a lot of areas. You look at the analytics of it, and they should be better. But their goaltending is not that good. Like Stuart Skinner and no,
that's the main reason why they're bad is because their goaltending has been so bad. So bad.
Yeah, and Jack Campbell now waived, and he's somewhere in minor league.
He's leaking goals down in the AHL. He's leaking goals down there. He might be done. Who knows? But don't count Soupy out. Don't count him out.
But like defensively, they're not good. Darnell Nurse is a guy who, listen, when you look at bad contracts, that's one of those contracts where you're like, ooh, really? And it's not like
makes more than Leon does.
And it's not like it's a relatively old contract. Like that's a pretty new deal. Evander Kane he's more concerned with running his mouth than he is with playing well for the Edmonton Oilers. And look, there's a reason why Evander Kane didn't work in Winnipeg. Evander Kane didn't work in Buffalo. Evander Kane didn't work in San Jose. There's a reason why Evander Kane has bounced around a bit like a kid in a bounce house because the reality is
because he's cancer.
Especially when times get hard. Especially when times get hard. That's why there will be something. You watch.
He does not have the ability to bear down and grind through it. When things get down, Evander Kane doubles down and he becomes a bigger problem than he was previously. So that's a situation that's not going to end well. They've got Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who I think is a good player, but I think there's a lot of teams that look at him where if they were going to make a move for goalie, I feel like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins would be the guy that they would move. But I think there's a lot of teams that look at him with some trepidation and say, listen, I know he scored 100 points last year, but that was 30 points more than his career high. Am I going to get a 100-point player if he's not playing on that power play? Maybe not. So I don't think they move Leon right. I mean, I think that's a move that we'll see maybe later, maybe like next year if they can't come to any type of agreement with him contractually. I think they in theory could move him because they got to get something back for him.
If they want to be serious, Chapman, if they want to be serious about remaking this roster, you dangle Evan Bouchard out there, even though they just re-signed him to a very, very friendly deal. Remember, this guy's only 24 years old, and he was at the top of their power play a lot last year.
He's probably their best defense.
Exactly.
No.
He's only making, and he's making $3.9. He's making $3.9 for the next 2 years, and he's a restricted free agent. So if you want to change the complexion, if you want to probably save Leon and Connor, you make that move. Would I suggest it? I would not. I would keep Evans because they need defensive help. That's what they need. That's what their problem is.
I think he's a guy you build around and, you know, very contractually friendly, which is something that's going to matter to them. And he's young enough. Mm-hmm. I don't foresee them. Look, maybe Ekholm is a guy that they try to ship out. I don't know what the hell you're going to get for him, but
he
could be a guy
heavy contract.
Yeah, so that's one that you're probably like, maybe. I don't know. I mean, could Zach Hyman be a guy that they move out? I don't know.
Well, we have to stop talking about the Edmonton Oilers.
He's signed for 5 more years at 5.5. Like, if he was on an expiring deal, sure. Sorry, Eddie.
That's okay. The last headline we have to talk to does not fall in the haha category. It's a very serious matter. It's something that we probably will not joke about at all in this segment. A player unfortunately lost his life a couple of weeks back playing professional hockey in England, where he was gruesomely cut by a skate in the neck. Just a couple of days ago, they decided, the police department in Sheffield, after having an investigation, that they were going to arrest the player who was responsible for the incident that took Adam Johnson's life. And my understanding is he is out on bail now, but he is looking right down the barrel at a manslaughter charge. And as the oldest member of this panel, I remember Todd Bertuzzi and Steve Moore. I remember Wilf Paymont swinging a stick that I'm sure I don't think either of you were probably alive when that happened, but it was the first egregiously vicious attack during a hockey game that it resulted in charges. Wilf Paymont played for the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is all stuff you guys can put up and look up on YouTube. We're not going to show you the video of what ended up causing the young man his life, but this is, I don't know how to verbalize what I think. I'll say that I don't think in any way, shape, or form that the player intended to kill Adam Johnson. I think that there was some intent to do harm to him. I think that I don't know. I'm manslaughter. Could somebody potentially go to jail for 3 or 4 or 5 years for something happened at full speed in a professional hockey game? I mean, I don't know. Todd Bertuzzi was banned for pretty much for life after the mugging that he performed. But a person lost their life this time. And that takes hockey violence out of on the ice and it puts it into real life. So I'm wondering what you two think of, not the loss of life. I'm sure I know what that is, but what do you think about a professional hockey player potentially being charged with a serious crime like manslaughter and possibly going to jail for quite a stint of time?
Well, I have a quote here from a police chief, or I'm sorry. So his title is Detective Chief Superintendent Bex Horsfall. And he said, our investigation launched immediately following this tragedy, and we have been carrying out extensive inquiries ever since to piece together the events which led to the loss of Adam in these unprecedented circumstances. So it is unprecedented. However, it's not the first time that something like this has happened. I found a case that we have to go back to 1992. On January 14th of 1992, Giacinto Jim Boni was charged in Italy of culpable homicide after he slashed Miran Schrott in the chest during a game. Schrott died as a result of a cardiac event. Boni pleaded guilty in that case. Now, I will say this. I've seen the video. I saw it immediately, maybe the day after it happened. Wasn't one of those things that I sought out. I was just scrolling on one of my social media apps, and there it was. And I felt like for journalistic integrity, I had to watch it because obviously there was a potential that we would talk about it on the VGK Insider Show as well. It was one of the most horrific things I've ever seen. And it's unfortunate, and it's terrible that Adam Johnson lost his life. I feel like, look, I'm the only one of the three of us who never played hockey at a high level or any level at that. When I watch the video, I feel like it's going to be very hard to prove any type of criminal act because I felt like when I watched that video, Matt Petgrave, the player who has been charged, from my perspective, it looked like he went to go check another player and he whiffed. And that created an out of control situation. He was totally out of control. There's zero doubt about that. Whether there's intent to injure, intent to harm, I don't know. I'll leave that up to the police in Sheffield. And I don't know enough about their courts of law to really make a prediction on what will happen if this eventually leads to a trial. I will say that Petgrave, I've seen comments from him, and he's really, really beaten up about it. As I would imagine everyone who's played any type of sport would be in this type of situation. But I have a difficult time seeing a criminal act there. I see a player who's completely out of control and a player who may or may not want it to harm another player, but it's difficult for me to watch that video and say there was a criminal act there. Again, not knowing the laws in England and not knowing how their justice system works as well as I know how it works here in the US. And as someone who never played the game. Now, you two both played, and I think maybe you guys may have a different perspective, or you may have based on my interpretation of him just being out of control. But it's a really, really terrible situation all around, and lives change forever. You know, I think about the fans that were in attendance at that game who will go home. Like I was at the IndyCar race here in Las Vegas, and it's a totally different situation. But Dan Weldon, two-time Indy Cup champion, was killed in an accident at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I was there, and knowing that you witnessed someone lose their life at a sporting event is not something I think about that all the time. So I feel for the fans who were there and witnessed that. I'm trying to remember, and you guys mentioned it all the time, that these guys have knives on their feet. I'm trying to remember. I feel like it was in the Winnipeg series in the playoffs, and there was a scramble down near the net. And I want to say that
he got his face cut.
Well,
someone's
skate came up high, and there was
75 stitches.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was falling in front of the net.
It's a very dangerous sport, and I don't think we realize how dangerous of a sport it is. I mean, we were, the three of us were there when Alec Martinez took the stick to the or the skate to the face, and he now has a scar, and he suffered nerve damage from that cut. It's a violent sport. It's a dangerous sport. It's a very fast sport. And it's a really, like I keep saying, it's a terrible situation. And the last thing I'll say is, like I said, I just don't know, watching that video, if you can prove any type of criminal act.
I just want to lead with sending my condolences back to everybody in Minnesota and part of Adam's community up in Hibbing, and just the hockey world, because we know hockey players know how dangerous the game is, but we forget all the time because it's a fun game and you're just skating around, you score goals and you get lost in the moment. And you kind of stole my thunder, Chris, the knives on your feet. I can remember the first hockey practice that I ever went to, and the coach talked about it, that you have knives on your feet and you have to be very careful. Like, there needs to be a respect paid to that type of tool that we're using. And, I've been in locker rooms where people have gotten their fingers cut off because they're tying their skates and people aren't paying attention. Like, that's not even in the arena itself. I've had teammates who have said, I'm going to go blow out this player's knee and then go out and do that on the next shift as well. And so I'm not saying this to attribute it to the situation, because I think it's a tragedy, and I think there was no intent with it that matched the result. But the scary thing about hockey is that it's very dangerous, and that it also exists where malicious intent can be wielded. We've seen people hurt others. Now, again, I'm not saying that's what happened in this situation. I've only seen the video a couple of times myself. It's very hard to watch. I can't imagine what the young man is feeling, the one whose skate blade cut Adam. I can't imagine what he's going through. But I know that everything needs to be looked at, and somebody lost their life. Like, there would be an investigation if it was, if there was an autopsy and somebody died in unexpected causes, right? Like, you see what happened to better protect yourself in the future, not necessarily to look for fault in what happened, because what fault, it doesn't matter to me at this point. Adam lost his life, and it could have been prevented in a number of different ways. And there's a lot of steam coming around neck guards right now. And that's something that's been mandated for Hockey Canada for a long time, not for USA Hockey. They don't do mouth guards in Canada. USA Hockey does. And so I know there's a great push with a lot of players, especially in the NHL, like TJ Oshie, who's also a Minnesota product, who has a hockey clothing line, Warroad, and how he has cut resistant fabrics. And so they're taking initiative. They're wearing it at games and showing that it's not this like prohibitive, annoying thing to wear anymore. Like, it should be a necessity. And it's absolutely tragic that it took the loss of Adam's life to take it seriously. And I'm sorry that everybody's caught up in this, because I've been in arenas where people have gotten their neck cut too. It's terrifying. It's so scary. And so I guess you figure out how you can do better and how to better protect people, and you mourn for people that are affected by something like this.
So the question is, and I'm not going to ask you to be in law enforcement, but from a hockey perspective, I'm going to make you now the commissioner of the, I don't know, whatever, EIEA, the Professional Hockey League, where this happened. Mm-hmm. And knowing that the player who inflicted that injury has a history of disciplinary actions there. Mm-hmm. If you're the commissioner of that league, what do you do?
I don't know.
It's a tough question. I feel like you have to allow the courts to do their job. I feel like you have to allow the Justice Department there to do what they need to do. But I feel like you have to establish a timeline. Like, you have to look at everything that transpired previous to that. Was there, and I'm guessing the police will do this as well. Was there something previously in that game or in other games that may have led to some type of altercation between these two players? Was there a history between Petgrave and Adam Johnson? Like, as the commissioner of that league, the first thing I'm doing is I'm mandating neck guards. Like, I don't know if it's like it is here, where it has to go through a players association, but that to me is a no-brainer. Like, you have to have protection in all areas for players, especially given what just transpired. But as far as a disciplinary, it's a tough one, because I don't know if you can establish intent to injure. Like, it's not like it was a guy who checked someone high or left his feet and delivered a blow to the head. It's a really difficult thing to establish based on what we've seen, which is why I think you have to establish that. You have to look at the history. You have to take everything into account. Was there any trash talk that transpired before the incident? Was there some pushing and shoving? You just have to go back and you have to look at every single moment that may have led up to this. I don't know if they've suspended him or not. I don't know if, like, what's happened since then, because it's so hard to keep up with.
I don't think anything yet. I mean,
so I think you have to allow the police, the law enforcement, and then the justice system play out and see how things go. Obviously, it's as you mentioned, the player does have a history, so that obviously comes into account. But I don't know if it should, just based on what we've seen.
I think it's a freak accident what happened. I know I'm reading that he received a standing ovation from his first game, during his first game back after the incident. I think it's a tragic situation that a lot of people in tragic situations look for answers for, and sometimes there's not an answer to be found. But you got to let the process play out, like you guys said. But I mean, it's just there's so much emotion associated with this, and trauma and hurt and all this, and it just, like, it feels like it's adding to it. It just
you mentioned that the emotion too. I feel like we can't allow and not we, but the people who make the decisions in England, they can't allow the emotional aspect come into play here. I mean, like Lindsey said, I think we always want answers, and sometimes they're just not there. But the last thing I think we can do, or they should do, is make a reaction based on emotions. And, the ultimate thing here is that Adam Johnson lost his life. And that's really the most important aspect of it. That a young man playing a sport we all love suited up that day and went out and played a game and never got to go home to his family. So, we can't lose sight of that. And it's just shitty that this even happened. It's just fucking terrible.
All right, that's going to end the this segment. Let's move on. Let's get back to the Golden Knights. They continue their road trip tomorrow in Montreal, then the Flyers, and then the Penguins. 4 games left on the road trip. 6 points. Is that a good road trip?
It's doable.
It's certainly. I mean, listen, the Habs always, for some reason, seem to play them tough.
Yeah, they do.
You're always going to get.
I'll play them here.
Yeah, you're always going to get a game with Torts.
Yeah.
Right? And the Penguins are, I don't know what the Penguins are. They still have terrible goaltending. So they have what?
They're 8-6.
That's a game the Golden Knights should win. They're better than the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Right. And then the Dallas Stars, which will be,
pick 'em.
A pick 'em and a playoff atmosphere.
Your first trip back there after you eliminated them from the playoffs.
So we're thinking, do we think six is good for the road trip?
I've always maintained 5 is a good road trip, 5 games, 10 possible points. You come back with 50%. I think that's always a good road trip. But look, they played good last night. That's the funny thing.
Yeah, they got goalied.
But that's all. The thing is, they were outplayed by the Flyers, and they were outplayed by the Canadiens, 2 teams that they're going to see on this road trip. They won both of those games. So it's going to be fun because, like you said, the games with Montreal are always good, and they're the Philadelphia. You're going to get a tough game. I think Pittsburgh is a game they do win, and then I think you have the Dallas game. So I think you're looking at the 3 other games, not Pittsburgh, because there's really not a history there. I mean, rivalry or anything like that. So I think that's a game where the Golden Knights, they're just a better team, and they'll win that game. The other 3, I think are toss-ups. They should win against Montreal. They should beat the Flyers, but it's entirely possible that they lose both of those games. But you definitely have to win, I think, 3 of these 4 to say it was a successful road trip, or at least get points in 3 of the 4 to say it was a successful road trip.
Can I say what they need to do instead of just the point totals? Because, obviously they should win all the games and do all that. You want all the points. They need to score on the power play. They've gone 4 straight games without scoring on the power play, especially when you're dancing a lot with teams and knowing how Montreal likes to go to the box, knowing how Dallas likes to go to the box. You're going to have to make people pay for it. And we know that, especially Dallas, if Pavelski's on the ice, that he's going to make you pay for it. So if you're going to box, take somebody with you, make sure you take advantage of it. I noticed that the Golden Knights score the most goals in the 3rd period, but those are much more plentiful at home. And so they need to get scoring going earlier in games instead of relying on 3rd period comebacks on the road. And so that just comes with a little bit more get up speed. And then I have some other goalie notes with Logan Thompson, but that's for a different time, different place. But they need to get in tight more, and they need to defend better in front of their own net.
All right. That's going to wrap up episode 60. We're on episode 60, on the road again. The Vegas Golden Knights are still leading the West, still grinding along, still finding ways to win most nights. We'll be back with you again next week. We're going to do this every week, and want to thank our sponsors, Las Vegas Advisor, www.lasvegasadvisor.com, your go-to website for everything Las Vegas, food tips, gambling tips, entertainment tips, show tips, anything that you need to know about Vegas. The Las Vegas Advisor is where you need to go to get that information. And by my good friend, Dr. John Pierce at agelessforever.net, www.agelessforever.net, 702-838-1994. If you call them up and make an appointment, your initial consultation is on me. Well, it's on the 3 of us. It's on the podcast. Take a couple hours, go learn a little bit about your health and how you can possibly get better. Hit the like and subscribe button. I'm really tired of begging for subscribers. I'm dying to give away a pile of this stuff in my swag closet. So if we can get a couple of more subscribers, we're going to give stuff away. We have posters to give away from season 1. We have gold statues to give away. We probably have some of those rally towel things because we have enough to wash our cars for the rest of our lives. We have swag. We want you to have it. Share the podcast with your friends. Like it. Send us comments. But subscribe. That's what we need. I'm begging for subscribers. And that will be a wrap for episode 60. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Lindsey and Chris. And we will see you again next week. Take care, everybody.